Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. So all of the wood filler has dried. I'm going to go ahead and start sanding down all of these surfaces that I've covered up, and I'm going to just do the entire surface of each door and smooth it out a little bit. I'm just using about a 220 grit piece of sandpaper, not super fine, but pretty fine. And then once all that's done, I'll wipe everything down, clean up the room to make sure I've got all the dust up, and I'll start priming at that point. And then we'll get these doors hung up. I think that I should be able to finish priming and painting these today. So I think by the evening, everything should be dry enough that I can assemble it. So we get going and see how far we can get. All right, I've got the doors all sanded down. I've got a couple more spots that I identified that needed a little bit of the wood filler. So I've got that sitting there drying out, and we'll sand those down in just a little bit. While those are drying, what I'm gonna do is install these ball catches. So it's got this kind of tube that this ball sits in on a spring. This will sit inside here, and this will engage a strike plate that will be up in the jamb. And so I've got to route this out in order to have this cylinder sit down inside there. So that's what I'm going to do now. Go ahead and hold that for me, please. Okay. Okay, that should be good right there. All right, that's pretty much it. Just got to make that little bit of hole there, and then this will sit down inside. I'm also probably going to route out or drill out these holes a little bit. That way this can sit down inside there a little. I've got some drill bits that have kind of a tapered edge that will cut into that. So I'll take care of that. All right, I'm gonna take care of this. The wood filler is gonna dry, I'll sand that down. Once this is all done and that wood filler's sanded down, then we'll be ready for the primer and I'll pick back up there. Okay, I'm gonna have to call it a day. I didn't get the priming or painting done today. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup. Just when I was about to start preparing and priming the doors, it occurred to me that I should hang them and double check that the size of the doors was correct before I started priming, in case I needed to shave a little bit off of the inside of each door. And it turned out that I did. I needed to take off a combined total of 1/8 of an inch in order to get the right gap between the doors. So I had to take the doors back down to the table saw and run them through again and shave a little bit off. They fit perfectly now, but doing that required me to patch up, some nicks and things like that from running across the table saw, and I had to use the router to smooth off and round off the edges of the doors again. And then I had to patch up all of the imperfections with the wood filler. So there's a couple of spots that are still drying, and I can't sand them yet. So I'm gonna get the sanding done tonight. I'll do that off the video. So that tomorrow when I come back, the first thing I'm gonna do in the morning is immediately start priming the doors. And if I start priming in the morning, I should be able to get at least a coat of the high gloss paint on by the evening. And if I'm not able to finish painting tomorrow, then at least I'll have a coat of the high gloss paint on by the end of the day. And then the next day, I'll be able to put the final coat of the high gloss paint on. And once that's dry, we'll be able to rehang the doors. Now, once the doors are hung, there is a little bit more that I've got to do. I've got this piece of wood that is going to act as kind of the door stop. So this will have to be cut down to size, and this will sit behind the doors so that when you push the doors in, that it'll actually, kind of stop those from pushing all the way in to the closet. Now there will also be a strike plate that'll sit right here for each door, and those strike plates are for those ball catches, so that they depress that ball, and then it's got a little bit of a divot in it, and that ball catches inside of that strike plate. But this is going to be put up. I'll put this up once the doors are finished and hung, and then I'll caulk in around this and put the final coat of high gloss paint on this, and then once that's done, the door is done. The French doors are complete and installed. We'll go through all that as we wrap everything up. But it's going to be, it looks like at least one more day, one more solid day of working on these doors before they're done. So I will see you in the morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. It is day 3 of working on these doors, and I am ready to start painting, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and put on the primer first, let that primer dry. I'll give it a light sanding, and then we'll go on to putting on the high gloss paint and hopefully get these hung by the end of the day. With the paint around these kind of decorative areas, I just kind of slap it on because I'm going to use my roller and smooth it out. And I don't really care, if it's kind of thick, because I'm just going to smooth it out anyway. All I want to do is just get into all these little crevices and everything. Make sure that everything is nicely filled in. Good. Go ahead and get a little bit of paint on that. That way I'm not just pulling the paint off of it. This primer dries pretty fast, and so you can see kind of some strokes and stuff like that, which is not a real big deal because, like I said, I'm gonna come over all of this and give it a light sanding, smooth everything out. I'll probably do 2 coats of paint or 2 coats of primer because the paint just goes on much nicer on at least 2 coats. If I just do a single coat, I'm going to have to do more coats of paint. I also find that if I do a nice coating of primer, that the high gloss paint seems to look nicer. It has more of a sheen. At least it's my impression anyway. I'm not worried about getting it real thick out here yet, because what I want to do is first get inside all of these areas, and once these are all nicely done, then I'll come over the surface and roll out the whole surface and smooth everything out. Okay, so I think you kind of get it. Just brushing on the paint to get inside all of these little corners and everything, and then rolling it so it's got a nice even spread to it. I'm going to go ahead and work on the rest of this. I'm going to just continue doing the same thing. And as soon as I get done applying all of the primer to this, I'll go ahead and bring you back and we'll give it a light sanding and go on to the next step. Okay, I've got 2 coats of the primer on each door, and I gave the paint or primer a little bit of time to dry. And so what I'm going to do now is I've just got a real light grit sanding block. I'm just going to give it just a real light sanding. I'm not trying to remove the primer. I just want to smooth out any kind of lumps or imperfections. You know, there's a couple of areas where some lint or dust or whatever got inside of the primer, and I want to get that removed and just kind of smooth out the primer itself a little bit. Once that's done, I think for today, because just getting this primed took over 4 hours. So I think what I'm going to try to do is at least paint the face of each door on one side and get 2 coats, and then let that dry. And then tomorrow paint the face and the sides of each door, and then I'll be done. I don't think I'll be able to get these completely painted on both sides today. So I'm gonna move as fast as I can, get this lightly sanded and smoothed out, and then start applying some paint and see where I get. So here we go. I'm not pressing real hard while I'm sanding this. I'm just really letting the block do most of the work. And this is an old block too, so I mean, even though it was a light grit anyway, it's pretty worn out. So I'm not really getting a lot of grip here. It's just barely smoothing it out, so it's a little bit smoother here. You can just kind of feel a little bit of a roughness where I haven't sanded yet. And that's really all I'm trying to accomplish. Okay. And that's pretty much it. All right. So that's it. Just a real light sanding. I'm not trying to, remove any thick layers of the primer or anything like that. Just removing all of the little bumps and imperfections, and just giving it a little bit of a smoother texture. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over and do the rest of this door, the sides, bring the other door down and take care of that. And then I'll be back and bring you back when I start applying the high gloss paint. Okay, I have finished sanding everything down and I've wiped it all down, try to get as much of the loose dust off as possible. It is nice and smooth now, and it's got a pretty nice finish already, just with the primer. So this is the same exact method that I did with the primer. I'm just gonna take my brush and I'm gonna fill in all of the gaps in these kind of finished boxes. I'm not worrying about getting a perfect application because I'm going to come over it with my roller, smooth it all out. I just really want to get in all the little crevices. I don't want to put it on too thick because I don't want any puddling. I don't want to get getting stuck inside the corners or anything. But just enough that it all is nice and uniform. Very excited to be done with this. This has been a long project. When you got a crew of people working, or you got help, somebody's working on one task, well, you and some other people are working on other tasks. Things like this are accomplished much faster, but that is, the give and take of a DIY kind of project. You don't have a crew of people, it's just you. It's you, do it yourself. But, the self-gratification that you get in doing projects and seeing the outcome is, really the major benefit of DIY. I love finishing a project and looking back at it, or sitting and looking at it at the end of the day, seeing what I've accomplished. Just being satisfied with the outcome. There we go. And just like with the primer, I'll put on this kind of thin coat first. Just kind of, like I said, get in all the crevices. And then I'll do a second coat to, put on a thicker application. The first step in this is really slow and kind of monotonous, to be honest. It's not my favorite part. I tend to be a little meticulous. I don't know how other people do it. The weather is cold and dry right now. I notice that my paint seems to be thicker and dries much faster right now at the end of the summertime, which is nice because the project dries faster, but frustrating in the application process because I have to move much faster to prevent streaks and uneven finish. So it's a little bit frustrating. Anyway, I'm going to continue on. I'm going to finish filling all of this in, and I will check back in with you once I finish applying all of the layers so you can see what the finished product looks like. From here, the next step is applying all the hardware and fitting out the rest of the hardware inside of the door jamb, because I've got to put the strike plate in and I've got to put the door handles on the actual doors, and I've got to put that piece up as well. So almost done, and I look forward to revealing the entire room with carpet and everything. But anyway, I'm going to focus on this, and I'll see you in just a minute.